Hello everybody and welcome back to Out of Body. My name is Sabrina, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the Disney movie Soul and how it relates to pre-existence and just to out-of-body experiences in general. A warning here that there are going to be some spoilers, so if you have not seen the movie and you have no idea what it's about and you plan on watching it, you might not want to watch this video because I'm going to go pretty in depth on what it's about and some theories behind it. But if you have seen the movie, you will know exactly what I'm talking about and you'll be able to relate to it, and I would love to hear your guys' theories as well. Just putting that out there. So first I'm going to start off by kind of reading through the synopsis and what the movie is about according to the Disney Plus website. So that way, if you haven't seen it in a while, or if you haven't seen it at all and you don't plan to watch it, this will kind of give you an idea of what the plot of the movie is about. So it says, Soul. What is it that makes you, you? Pixar Animation Studios' all-new feature film Soul introduces Joe Gardner, voice of Jamie Foxx, a middle school band teacher who gets the chance of a lifetime to play at the best jazz club in town. But one small misstep takes him from the streets of New York City to the great before, a fantastical place where new souls get their personalities, quirks, and interests before they go to Earth. Determined to return to his life, Joe teams up with a precocious soul, 22, voice of Tina Fey, who has never understood the appeal of the human experience. As Joe desperately tries to show 22 what's great about living, he may just discover the answers to some of life's most important questions. That's the basis of the story. So what basically happens at the beginning of the movie, the main character, Joe, who is a jazz musician, so he ends up having an accident and is about to die when his soul goes to this place. It's very dark and there's this kind of light at the end of the tunnel, and they call that the Great Beyond. And so he meets up with these other souls that are there. A couple of the other souls are like really old. You know, you can tell kind of the way they characterize them and did the voices that these other souls are that of people who lived a very long life and they're ready to move on. They're ready to go to the Great Beyond, and they're telling him about it. And he's like, wait, no, I just got this gig and I have to go back. And so he's fighting it, he's trying to fight through all these people, and eventually he kind of breaks through this barrier and falls, just keeps falling in darkness. And when he finally stops falling, he ends up in this wondrous land. It's all like kind of blue and purpley. That's why I kind of made my lights in the background kind of bluish teal to match. Anyway, so this land is what they call the Great Before, which means that it's this land where souls live before they go to Earth. So it very much insinuates the existence, if you will, of pre-existence, which is something I've talked about on my channel previously. A couple of years ago, I believe, I did a video on pre-existence, and I talked about my actual pre-birth memory that I believe is a pre-birth memory anyway. It's a memory I've always had of this place that does not exist on Earth. I might recap my personal experience here at the end for those of you who have not heard it, but many people do actually claim to have memories of a place where they lived before Earth. Now, not necessarily speaking of a previous life, like a previous life on Earth or a previous life on another planet or anything like that. I'm not talking about that specifically in this video, though that is another thing that people have memories of. Specifically, this place where souls reside, just kind of waiting to come to Earth. Some people have claimed to have picked their parents from this place. Some people even remember looking down on Earth and watching their parents meet. I go more in depth on some of those stories that people have told in my other video, so I'll definitely link that down below so you guys can watch that. But anyway, back to the movie. So it does insinuate that there is this before land, before souls come to Earth. Because a lot of people question, you know, what happens after you die? Where's the afterlife, the afterlife, the afterlife, the afterlife? Well, not a lot of people think about what comes before we get here. is there anything before we get here, or are we just born from our mothers and that's it? So I just thought it was really, really interesting that Disney took this big step and made a movie like this. Like, to me, it's like groundbreaking for the out-of-body type paranormal, spiritual, what have you, community. I think it's very, very daring to do. And because it's going to make people question, especially children. It's going to make children question, which may make a problem for some parents. I don't know. But I think it's great. You know, it's great for kids to ask questions about what happened before they came here and what happens next. Because many children, especially when they're very, very young, like between the ages of 2 to 3 on up to like 6 or 7-ish, a lot of them can remember things from before, and then once they get older they start to forget it. So I think it's really good that Disney did a movie like this so that young kids might see it and might think, oh, I remember a place like that. If you want to read more about pre-existence and people's true stories about their pre-birth memories, I'll also reference to you a book by Wayne Dyer, and the book is called Memories of Heaven, although it's not necessarily just about people that remember a place called heaven, but it's basically about pre-existence and people who have had pre-birth memories. And there's a few stories about people who have had memories of previous lives on Earth as well. So I thought the book was interesting. Now, even Robert Monroe, famous out-of-body astral projection scientist basically, who studied all of these things and experienced it himself and wrote books about it. I've mentioned him many times on my channel. I remember vaguely, and I don't quote me on this, but I remember vaguely in one of his books, I believe it was the second or third book he wrote, where he had an experience where he actually went, when he was astral projecting, he actually went to one of these before places, and he would see people waiting to go to Earth. And he would actually see people go to Earth, live their life, leave, and then go right back. You know, like keep going back, keep going back, keep going back. I remember I do remember him somehow comparing Earth to like a, you know, kind of addicting. You know, that the physical experience can be addicting for souls. So getting back to the movie, what basically happens is that Joe is in his soul form and he meets this other soul called 22. And he meets 22 because when he accidentally falls into this before land, the elders or the powers that be in that land assumed that he was a mentor, like a soul mentor for these baby souls, if you will, that needed to go to Earth. So all these little baby souls needed a mentor to kind of help them find their spark so that they could go to Earth. So he ends up being assigned with this soul called 22, and she's apparently this troublemaker. She doesn't want to go to Earth. She's not interested. She doesn't want to go. She's had dozens of mentors before him who have failed, including Mother Teresa. I thought it was so funny that they did that. They put Mother Teresa in there. They put Gandhi, I think, in there. A bunch of other like spiritual leaders and just like famous people that you would think would be able to inspire someone, but they couldn't inspire her. She still didn't want to go to Earth. So since she doesn't want to go to Earth, and Joe does, and he's assigned as her mentor, he tries to help her find her spark, because once she finds her spark, as they say, she gets an Earth pass and she can go to Earth. And so he says, well, I'll help you find your spark so you can get your Earth pass and give it to me, and then you don't have to go to Earth and I get to, and everybody's happy. And she agrees. She's like, yeah, that's great. And then throughout the movie, a lot of trial and error. He can't really get her to find her spark. And so they end up trying to find a different way to get him back to Earth and essentially get back to his body. Because his body is not dead yet. He's kind of like in the hospital. So then what happens next, which kind of goes into the out-of-body astral projection side of things, is they find this gentleman who is not dead. He's actually astral projecting. He's like a professional astral projector. And he has these other friends that are doing it too. And so they find this gentleman. He basically has Joe meditate and focus on his body to find where his body is, which I liked that part of the movie because that's very, very true. If you're astral projecting and you're out of body, the best way to find your body is just to be still and think about it and focus on it, and then usually you'll end up just snapping back. But in the movie, it was like this portal that opened up, and then you could look down and he was able to see his body. And so at that point he kind of freaks out and he's like, oh, there it is, and he jumps through the portal and he ends up accidentally knocking 22 with him, so they both go down to this portal. And so as it turns out, he doesn't go back into his body at first. He's actually in the body of a cat that was on the hospital bed with his body, and then the soul 22 ends up going into his body. So that's what makes it kind of comical and funny. So they spend the next part of the movie just trying to get their bodies switched or just get him back into his body somehow. Throughout that experience, 22 ends up finding her spark, and she does this because she's in his body, so she's able to experience Earth and experience life and the life that he loved, and so she ends up kind of falling in love with it as well. And I'll leave the rest of the movie kind of on its own in case you haven't watched it, because the rest of it's just kind of, it doesn't really go a whole lot more into the whole astral projection or out-of-body stuff. Eventually he does get back into his own body, and then he gets to experience a little bit of that, and he kind of realizes that it's not all that it's chalked up to be, you know, that it really is his time to move on. He finds a way to go back, and then 22 gets her Earth pass. She goes to Earth, and then he actually gets a second chance at the very, very end, so that's a spoiler alert there. He gets a second chance by the powers that be, and they send him back. And at the end, Joe kind of realizes what life is, what life really means, you know, and that it's really about the little things. It's not necessarily about, you know, being a successful musician or getting the gig he wanted. Like, those things are great, but it's not what life is about. Oh, and what's funny is the man that was the astral projector, while he was astral projecting, he was actually like at the corner of some busy street in New York City, like flipping a sign around and dancing around with the sign, but he was like astral projecting at the same time, which I thought was funny. Because usually people are meditating when they do that, or asleep or something, but he was like dancing. Not likely to actually happen that way, but I just thought it was funny. So anyway, at this point, I want to kind of go more into my thoughts on it, and then I'm going to go into my personal pre-birth experience just briefly, just, you know, for those of you who haven't heard it. And then I want you guys to comment down below and let me know what you guys think. If you've seen the movie, do you plan to watch it? If you have seen it, what did you think about the subject matter? You know, did you think it was pretty accurate? Do you think there is a before place like that? Do you think something like that doesn't exist? You know, I would love to hear you guys' opinions and what you think down below. So for me, I feel like, you know, I guess I'm a little biased because I do have my own pre-birth memory, but I do feel like it's not the same for everybody, but I feel like a place like that does exist. You know, I wouldn't sit here and say it doesn't exist. I think a place like that does exist, or there may be multiple. I would argue there's probably multiple realms or, you know, places out there in the universe like this place where souls can reside or even rest before going to Earth. The only thing I would probably disagree with is that I don't think it's necessarily like brand new souls that reside there, or baby souls as they kind of seemed to insinuate in the movie, that it was like these brand new souls. I feel like, for me, I feel like souls that come to Earth aren't necessarily brand new. They may have lived lives elsewhere, or lived lives, you know, even lived lives on Earth before, and then they just come to this place to kind of rest before they go back, or, you know, things like that. I don't necessarily feel like it's all like we're all just like these brand new baby souls before we come to Earth, you know. I don't think that's necessarily it, because to me that insinuates that Earth is like the only planet with life, and, you know, I tend to go with the argument that there's probably a lot out there that we don't know, you know, a lot of life out there that we don't even know about. And so now this also can go into the argument of, do souls have like an age? You know, like, is there such thing as an old soul? Is there such thing as a young soul? You know, like, that's kind of a debate in the spiritual community, I would say. And another point to make as well, because like I mentioned earlier, at the end of the movie, they give him a second chance and he gets to live again. That kind of goes into near-death experiences a little bit, because there's a lot of people who have talked about having a traumatic near-death experience where they end up going to some other place, some other land, like heaven or something like that, and then they end up being sent back and given a second chance, or maybe it's not their time yet and so they're sent back to Earth. So the end of the movie kind of brings up that topic a little bit. And then as far as the man who was astral projecting, I feel like that was, again, pretty accurate. You know, I thought it was neat that they put it in the movie at all. You know, the fact that people who are still living can transport themselves in such a way into another land like that. So that's about it as far as my thoughts on it. So now I'll just briefly go into my pre-birth memory. I've always had this memory ever since I can remember. So I always kind of wondered when I was really, really little, like 3 or 4 years old, I'd be like, was that a dream that I had? Or it's just something that's always been in my head, just a memory. So I don't know if it was a dream. It could have been a dream. Maybe I had when I was a baby or something. Or it could actually be a memory. So what happened is that I'm in this place that is extremely colorful. Like there's just colors everywhere. So vivid. Similar now, in hindsight, similar to some of my astral projection experiences I've had, where, you know, once I get out of my body, everything is just so much more vivid. The colors are just so much brighter. So anyway, in this memory, I'm actually laying down on a tree limb, way up in the air, and I'm looking up at the sky, or what have you, whatever it is. It's not really like Earth sky, it's just like this blank sky. And the trees are like nothing I've ever seen on Earth. I mean, they were literally colorful. Like all the leaves were like this glossy, you know, just multicolored. It's just hard to explain, but they were just different. So the next thing I remember is somebody calling my name from down below. And so I kind of lay there for a second, like, ugh. I remember thinking in my mind in that moment, like, ugh. I know I gotta go, but I don't want to go. I don't want to leave this place. And so I hesitated, and it was a woman's voice down below. She called my name again, and I'm like, okay, I know I gotta go. So I look down and I see her. There's actually 2 girls, 2 young girls. One is in like a pink dress, and the other one's in a blue dress, I think. Blue or purple. And just kind of like a robe dress looking thing. See, I have it written down somewhere, the details, and I can't remember exactly off the top of my head what happens next, but basically she says something like, you know, it's time to go, and I'm like, I know, you know, and so then I start to climb down, and then that's all I remember. So it's just interesting to me, because it makes me feel like, you know, it could have been something like a pre-birth memory. It could have been memory of me, you know, being in this paradise and knowing that I had to go to Earth, that it was my time, but not really wanting to. Yeah, I thought you guys might find that interesting. But now I want you guys to tell me your thoughts down below. Put them down there, even if you think it's silly, even if you like think it's stupid, just comment it anyway. So that's the end of this video. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you guys so much for supporting me during 13 Nights of Halloween. I'm trying really hard to stay consistent on this channel. If you think about it, if you guys have any suggestions for videos that you'd like to see, definitely comment those down below as well. That helps me a lot, because half the reason why I don't upload sometimes, if it's not because I'm really busy, it's because I'm just not really sure what to film. So, you know, anything that you guys want to see, let me know. Thank you guys again for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.